कलाइडोस्कोप में। हमारे देश में किसी भी कार्य का शुभारंभ हमेशा ईश्वर की वंदना से होता है। आज हम शुरुआत कर रहे हैं मंगलाचरण से। प्रस्तुत है श्री गणेश अष्टोत्तर शतनाम स्तोत्रम, that is the 108 names of Lord Ganesha. This is a powerful stotra to remove obstacles and to liberate the listener from all fears. Ganesh Stotram is taken from the Narad Puran. This is a conversation between Lord Yama and his followers or the Dutas, where he is advising them to stay away from wherever the name of Lord Ganesha is being uttered, for wherever his name is taken, fear cannot reside. This stotra is composed in Rag Yaman and Tal Dadra. It is being presented by Pandit Divyanand Jha. The accompanying artists are Shri Devashish Pathak on the Pakhavaj, Shri Rishabh Pathak on the tabla, and Shri Atul Shankar on the bansuri. The 108 names of Shri Ganesha.
सुप्रभातम। सभी को सादर नमस्कार। आज हम लोग नारद पुराण में वर्णित श्री गणेश अष्टोत्तर शतनाम स्तोत्रम प्रस्तुत करने जा रहे हैं। वस्तुतः इस स्तोत्र के पाठ से सभी प्रकार के भय से मुक्ति मिलती है। कदापि अकाल मृत्यु का भय नहीं होता। सभी प्रकार की सिद्धियां भी प्राप्त होती हैं। तो प्रस्तुत है श्री गणेशाष्टोत्तर शतनाम स्तोत्रम। यश्छन्दसां वृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासम् शरीरं मे विचर्षणम् जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रवम् मन्दारमाला शमिकाष्ठजा च यस्यैव देहे भवति प्रमाणम्। मन्दारमाला शमिकाष्ठजा च यस्यैव देहे भवति प्रमाणम्। पुष्पं तयो पत्रयुतं च शूरा संत्यज्य दूरं चरत प्रभीता। अनेकविघ्नान्तकवक्रतुण्ड स्वसंज्ञवासिंश्च चतुर्भुजेति अनेकविघ्नान्तकवक्रतुण्ड स्वसंज्ञवासिंश्च चतुर्भुजेति कवीशदेवान्तकनाशकारिं वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता कवीशदेवान्तकनाशकारिं वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता महेशसूनो गजदैत्यशत्रु वरेण्यसूनो विकटत्रिनेत्र महेशसूनो गजदैत्यशत्रु वरेण्यसूनो विकटत्रिनेत्र परेश पृथ्वीधर एकदन्त वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता प्रवेश पृथ्वीधर एकदन्त वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता प्रमोदमोदेति नरान्तकारे षडूर्मिहन्तर्गजकर्णढुण्डे प्रमोदमोदेति नरान्तकारे षडूर्मिहन्तर्गजकर्णढुण्डे स्थिरभावकारिं वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता वन्वारि सिन्धु स्थिरभावकारिं वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता विनायकज्ञानविघातशत्रु पराशरस्यात्मज विष्णुपुत्र विनायकज्ञानविघातशत्रु पराशरस्यात्मज विष्णुपुत्र अनादिपूज्या सर्वपूज्य वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता अनादिपूज्या सर्वपूज्य वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता वैरिञ्चलम्बोदरधूम्रवर्णा मयूरपालेति मयूरवाहिन् वैरिञ्चलम्बोदरधूम्रवर्णा मयूरपालेति मयूरवाहिन् सुरासुरैस्सेवितपादपद्मा वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता सुरासुरैस्सेवितपादपद्मा वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता वरिन्महाखोध्वजशूर्पकर्णा शिवाजसिंहस्थनन्तवाह वरिन्महाखोध्वजशूर्पकर्णा शिवाजसिंहस्थनन्तवाह दिग्भुज विघ्नेश्वर शेष शेषनाभ वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीताः च विघ्नेश्वर शेषनाभ वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीताः। अणोरणीयो महतो महीयो रवेर्जयोगेशज ज्येष्ठराज अणोरणीयो महतो महीयो रवेर्जयोगेशज ज्येष्ठराज निधीश मन्त्रेश च शेषपुत्र वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता निधीश मन्त्रेश च शेषपुत्र वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता। वरप्रदातेश्च शृणु वरप्रदातारदितेश्च सूनो परात्परज्ञानदतारवक्त्र वरप्रदातारदितेश्च सूनो परात्परज्ञानदतारवक्त्र पार्श्वपुत्र वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता पार्श्वपुत्र वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता। सिन्धोश्च शत्रु परशु प्रयाणे शमीश पुष्प प्रिय विघ्नहारि सिन्धोश्च शत्रु परशु प्रयाणे शमीश पुष्प प्रिय विघ्नहारिं भुवाभिरैरर्चित देवदेव वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता भुवाभिरैरर्चित देवदेव वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता। धियः प्रदातश्च शमे प्रियेति सुसिद्धदातश्च सुशान्तिदातः धियः प्रदातश्च सुसिद्धमेति सुसिद्धदातश्च सुशान्तिदातः अमेयमायामितविक्रमेति वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता अमेयमायामितविक्रमेति वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता। द्विधा चतुर्थे प्रियकश्च पाश्च वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता द्विधा चतुर्थे प्रियकश्च पाश्च धनप्रदज्ञानप्रदप्रकाश चिन्तामणि चित्तविहारकारिं वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता चिन्तामणि चित्तविहारकारिं वदन्तमेवं त्यजत शत्रु विधेर्जहन्तः कपिलस्य सूनो यमस्य शत्रु ह्यभिमानशत्रु विधेर्जहन्तः कपिलस्य सूनो विदेहस्वानन्दजयोगयोग वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता विदेहस्वानन्दजयोगयोग वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता। गणस्य शत्रु कमलस्य शत्रु समस्तभावज्ञ च भालचन्द्र गणस्य शत्रु कमलस्य शत्रु समस्तभावज्ञ च भालचन्द्र अनादिमध्यान्तमय प्रचारिं वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता अनादिमध्यान्तमय प्रचारिं वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता। विभो जगद्रूपगुणेश भूमन् पुष्टेः पते आकुगतेति बोधः विभो जगद्रूपगुणेश भूमन् पुष्टेः पते आकुगतेति बोधः कर्तुश्च पातुश्च च संहरेति वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता कर्तुश्च पातुश्च तु संहरेति वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता वदन्तमेवं त्यजत प्रभीता। इदमष्टोत्तरशतं नाम्नां तत्प्रपठन्ति ये शृण्वन्ति तेषु कुरुत भीता मा वै प्रवेशनम् भुक्तिमुक्तिप्रदं ढुण्ढे धनधान्यप्रवर्धनम् ब्रह्मभूयकरं स्तोत्रम् जपतो नित्यमादरात् यत्र कुत्र गणेशस्य चिह्नयुक्तानि वै भटाः धामानि तत्र कुरुत संभीता मा प्रवेशनम् संभीता मा प्रवेशनम् संभीता मा प्रवेशनम्। श्रीगणेशाष्टोत्तरशतनामस्तोत्रम्। धन्यवाद।
Shri Ganeshashtotar Shatanam Stotram was presented by Pandit Divyanand Jha. He was accompanied by Shri Devashish Pathak on the Pakhavaj, Shri Rishabh Pathak on the tabla, and Shri Atul Shankar on the bansuri. Our next segment is the lectures and screening segment, but we need to change our setup. We will see you in just a short while from now.
puri hui da shi le do idu chutu chubri khan bi chani hina ka hindi handa down din la ki bole ki di idu organize hui na ase aro idu voting process do la voting process bigina hui jai idu alag hui di bo the first idu puri ba oi na ahi shi le do idu ni roughly na ne just go back and see how. I think we can push this back a bit. Can we just push this back a bit? Yeah. Yeah. Itu iman lambar lagi biasa deh. Kunci mana? Iman itu juga boleh. दो नंबर हेलो तुम्ही चाहिए ना बहुत बड़ी टाइम दे कुछ तो है हेलो कितना मेरा भैया स्टेज पे खड़े हैं थोड़ी मैम इज डन नीचे आने को नहीं लगा वो ऑन करना है चेक कीजिए ना हेलो यदि अन्य के नाम मारी भी दे है यार कान लोगों दिखा दो ना है नो
Namaskar and welcome to the lectures and film screening segment of Kaleidoscope, a festival of the intangible cultural heritage of India, presented by Sangeet Natak Akademi. We begin with a lecture demonstration on recovering Etso bark weaving in Choklangan. The tradition of weaving cloth from bark fibers of Etso, the orange wild rhea plant, was commonly practiced among the Kamyugan Naga of Nagaland. However, it all but disappeared with the introduction and easy availability of mill-spun yarn over the laborious process to turn fiber into cloth. Choklangan is one of the remotest villages of Nagaland, close to the international border with Myanmar. Until a decade ago, there was no road and the village was accessible only by foot. In this environment, Etso bark weaving continued, but remained confined amongst the elderly women folk. Perhaps the inaccessibility and the remoteness played a part in preserving this craft. In 2016, women SHG members were invited to demonstrate Etso weaving at the Hornbill Festival of Nagaland. 2 members trained under retired practitioners and recovered the knowledge and skills. One of the women members was Srimati Longtso, who went on to be conferred with the title of Guru under the Guru Shishya Parampara scheme through the Northeast Zone Cultural Center. To tell us the incredible story of how Choklangan, a remote village in the farthest corner of Northeast, recovered a traditional craft through an experiential presentation by Ms. Sentila T. Yanga, with a live demonstration by Guru Yongtso.
Thank you. Recovering Etso weaving in Choklangan is today's presentation, and I shall make this presentation veering between audiovisual, still, and an experiential experience. But before that, I would like to introduce Guru Longtso of Choklangan village and her assistant knitting. Guru Longtso, knitting, her assistant. So Guru Longtso was, as it was announced earlier, in 2016, an invitation was sent out to participate in a craft exhibition in the much reputed Hornbill Festival of Nagaland. And I happened to be curating this exhibition called Craftscape. And so they were invited, and they took the training from some of the retired women folk in Choklangan to come and demonstrate the fading status of Etso weaving. Today, in the 7 years since 2016, Longtso has gone on to be conferred Guru status by the Northeast Zone Cultural Center. And in this 1 year of her guruship, she has been enthusiastically reviving and recovering Etso weaving, learning from the elder folks, and teaching to the younger generation. First of all, who are the Kamyugan Nagas? This is the map of India, and here, sorry. And this is Nagaland, which is enlarged over here. And you will see, can we have some lights over here focused on the screen? And this is Choklangan village, as you can see, a very remote village bordering Myanmar. In the origin myths of the Kamyugan Naga, their legends tell the story of a great surge of people who were living by the Kamyu River. A flood happened, and so they all rushed up to the hills, and when the flood waters had receded, they came down and settled down in the Kamyu riverside until they were there for a couple of decades when they all went their separate way into the different 5 ranges of Noklak district. Now the word Kamyugan means the source of great waters. The Kamyugan Nagas, there are just 42 villages in Nagaland, but a huge number of Kamyugan population lives in Myanmar, and they number up to 165 villages. And so villages like Choklakan share a lot of affinities with people on the other side, and there's always a constant exchange of, bonding, marriages even. Now this is the image of a picture of Choklakan village, and as you can see, these high mountain ranges are the Kulya Kingyu Mountains. And beyond this is Burma. The entrance to Choklakan. And so these are some of the few houses you will come across if you go to Choklakan. And this particular house signifies that the resident has given many feasts of merits by the Mithun skulls, which are proudly put up on the walls of his house. This is the male morong, or the male institution, and this belongs to the landowners, the gentry of Choklakan village. The famous log drums in many Naga villages, you will get the different types of log drums, and this particular design is synonymous with the Kamyugan Naga. And the log drum is where the people will come in times of a fire, in times of emergency. They will beat on its hollow body, and there are different rhythmic tunes to signify different messages. So now the plant in question. The Etso is derived from the stems of this plant. Next slide. This is called the orange wild rhea, known by its botanical name, Debrigaceae longifolia. And this is a native species in the surrounding mountains of Choklakan, and it is from here, from this particular plant, that the Kamyugans have from time immemorial extracted its fibers to weave cloth. Today, the tradition of Etso weaving is in a languishing status in most of the Choklakan villages, most of the villages among the Kamyugan, which has already died out, but in Choklakan, they have managed to retain it for some time, probably because the village was inaccessible, did not have a motorable road until the last decade, and so perhaps that was one of the reasons why the craft lingered for a while. But also, at that moment in time, it was the younger lot had already weaned away from the practice, and it continued only with the elderly lot who sort of like kept it alive for some time, and they too, because of old age and infirmity, they let go of the practice. But from, the past, Choklakan was reputed as a Etso weaving village. And many of the villages, surrounding villages around Choklakan, would bring the raw material to the women folk, and the women folk would process the fibers and weave cloth and return it to them, and probably there was a thriving barter practice happening at that time. The best time to harvest Etso is from September to November. And why? Because this is at this particular stage in the year that the plant is very bulbous, fibrous, and it holds a lot of water. It retains a lot of water, and that makes it easier for the woman to strip the bark from the plant. So I'm going to play a video of how the women folk of Choklakan, they harvest Etso. You can notice that the chopped twigs are snapped and stripped of the bark, and the stripped bark is put around the neck as they collect it. So in these verdant forests, Etso plant thrives naturally. And you can see Guru Longso herself is here. And so after harvesting the raw material, what happens next? And that will be demonstrated by Guru Longso and her assistant. Can we have some lights over here? So like in the video, they're doing the same, smoothly pulling away the bark. So you saw her after they return home. It would have been strung out, in a shaded area, not in the sun, for a week. And why keep it in a shaded area is so that the process of drying is slow and the retention of the moisture in the stem, in the bark, is prolonged and sustained. And you will see why as they demonstrate further. Now, after a week, the fibers are brought down and they are joined by rolling it on the ties. And if you were to come and feel the fibers, you will know how coarse and hard it is. So this is a very, let me say, very painful exercise, and it is a very tedious and a laborious process. And she's taking out the fibers because after she had brought it down, she had placed it in the mat over there, and covered it with mud. And that mud further prolongs and sustains the, rapid dehydration of the fibers. So from that bunch of dried fibers, it is rolled and kept in the basket, in a flat basket. So now, as you can see on the left, her assistant, how she's splitting the fibers piece by piece, and it is easily done because the fiber had not been too dehydrated in the sun, and that slow drying process helps towards this. And it's easier, makes it much more malleable for the worker to split it further. And why that is so is because when they are winding it down while making it into hanks, it is much more easier to work with it. So after that process is over, you saw Guru Lungtso as she tied up and she started spinning it on her thighs. So now that yarn is rolled into a ball. And Guru Lungtso takes out the spindle and starts spinning the yarn. Singing usually accompanies this laborious process. So she was singing about under the shadow of the Kamyugan mountains is where the Etso grows abundantly, and how they harvest it to weave their textile. Next, she will now wind using a hand winder made of bamboo and stick to make the yarn into hanks. So the whole process from its harvest till the time the textile is produced is 100% handmade. And at no point in that weaving process is a machine used. So as you can see, she's got a cross like an X over there, and you'll know why when she removes it from the winder. She's binding one end of the hank so that it will not loosen in the process in the next stage, which is going to be a very laborious stage. So now you can see it has become double the length of the winder. Okay, ruki bihitya. So now, so what is the next stage? We have seen how they have processed it from harvest to the stage it has reached, which is spinning it into a hank. So in the next stage, the hank, the natural fibers undergo a hot process to break down the fibers and the molecules so that it becomes softer. So here, in an old cut-out jerry can or even an earthen pot, the hank has been cooked with wood ash to break down the fibers, and in this lye, the hank is cooked for about more than 2 hours. And using these wooden implements, these wooden clubs, you will see that in the next video, what happens to the treated hank. Can we have lights? एक बार जाके ना मरा दो दिखा भाई. So, using that wooden club. She has beaten it down. And this also removes all that glutinous substance which was there in the hang, in the fiber. And after this process is over, you can see Guru Lungtsu outside her home. She has removed the hot, from the hot lye and taken out the hang. And there's a group of them beating it on a flat piece of stone. And you can see that it is very dark because of the ash, the lye in which it was cooked. Now they will start cleaning it, and this takes a very long time. As you can quite well imagine, the water itself over here looks very muddy because of the wood ash in which it was cooked. So after repeated rinsing and washing out, it needs a lot of water. This is what happens. You can see that the hangs are whiter now. They've cleaned out of all that lingering debris. And this is how it will look once it is washed and dried. So now we will go into another live demo where they will show us the weaving process.
Zamon에 농대 이블로그다 라시니 농단이 차비하다 준시 농단이 피우도이다 준시 농인이 신디니 천기 대형가 농이 아우향노 그 자모대 이블로시니.
So Guru Lungtsu is weaving the warp as her assistant knitting is spinning from the hang, which has been treated. So now that the warping process is over, she will start the weaving. And groups of women, when they're working, they're always singing to, lament sometimes on their situation, sometimes in a lot of laughter and gossiping. So it's a very collective thing when this kind of work takes place in the villages. Kana Gurubina. So now remember that by this stage, that hard and coarse natural fiber has now become so malleable that it is very easy now for the weaver to weave it. And all that splitting that we saw earlier has made the yarn much more easier to work with. Sometimes when it becomes a little tough, they would rub beeswax on the warp, so that gives it a much more smoother play when they weft it.
sai bao xi sao lum cho sa yan kem elem le ka noi ni mo sai chi elem le o ni mo sai avem công công so ni mo sai elem le ka noi ni mo sai kalya gi ni da nong da jon si no kalya gi ni da nong da jon si sha mo xiao gi ni da nong da jon si no kalya gi ni da nong da jon si no che elem le o lo ni ni mo sai Etso da nong da jon si no Etso da nong da jon si sha Etso da nong da jon si no kalya gi ni da nong da jon si no kalya gi ni kem le nong lem le si no kalya gi ni kem le nong lem le si no Etso da nong da jon si no
And so, in the backdrop, you will notice some of the shawl, the textile woven from the Etso plant. Just behind Guru Longtso is the end result of the bark textile. And over here in the front, which is a little lighter in color, is a mixture of the bark textile, bark threads with the thread of the stinging nettle plant. So besides Etso, the village of Choklakan is also very, where, they commonly use nettle in their textile. Okay, so in the next slide, in the next slide, you'll see outside Guru Longtso's house how a group of women are also winding the hanks which have already been processed. And these are some of the balls of woven, rolled fiber. And over here, the end result of the enthusiasm of Choklakan in recovering back Etso, their bark textile. And here, in the last year, this is how the community has brought it together collectively, where you find the younger lot are now initiated into the practice of bark weaving. And you'll find in the video how the elderly folks are mentoring them. And these are all very encouraging signs of the successful recovery of Etso weaving And especially when we see the younger lot happily participating and in learning a heritage craft. And notice how the elderly woman, the former practitioner, is using mud to roll the pieces of thread, which Guru Longso has also demonstrated here. And to see such encouraging signs of recovery of a faded craft is, hopefully, it should pay, generate commerce for the women of Choklakan, and at the same time, preserve and conserve a heritage craft. So when they attended the Hornbill Festival in 2016, and in the craft exhibition that was curated by me, I told them that once they reach home, they should do a little diversification in the designs. And so what emerged was this particular textile. This tuft pattern is generally found in the male jacket. So I, mentored them to, why don't you experiment and see how it will look on a shawl. So this is the design which was conceived, and that very textile is here, hanging over here. And with that intervention, design intervention, the ladies, the SSGs are now diversifying the design element in the woven textile. This is a traditional bag which male members would wear when they go to work in the fields, and it has a bamboo woven sling. And this one here is one of the new innovative products, which is also hanging here in the stand. And this is again the traditional, the very traditional Etso male bag. And here is the end result of all that laborious and tedious processing of bark fiber into woven cloth. And so we see this very successful recovery, and hopefully Choklagan will once again embrace the craft practice and make it a sustainable income generating effort. And in doing so, they have formed a label called NU. And in that, the message clearly says that this is an artisanal product and 100% hand-woven. And we hope that not only with a successful craft intervention, but that the forest base, the resource base, would also be sustainable, and they would take up equally, enthusiastically, the replanting and regeneration of the plant base. And then the story of a complete recovery will be complete. Thank you. Maybe they would like to do some close-up.
Excuse me?
Yeah, let them come and do some close-up, yeah. How was that? Was that okay?
That was a lecture demonstration on recovering Etso bark weaving in Chokalangan. In just a short while from now, we will present the documentary In the Shadow of Time, but we need to change the setup, so please give us a few moments.